Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, shout out Bobby Marks for this tweet. 10-day contract started. And with the G League showcase, which we attended last month as a media member, I thought let's go ahead and talk about the best available 10-day contract players. Now, anybody can be a 10-day contract guy. It just means you're willing to take a 10-day contract. Typically, it's for guys who are G League players who are trying to get a two-way contract or another roster or the final roster spot, or an NBA free agent like a TJ Warren, a Nassir Little. It's just, those types of guys. So we're just going to go through some of the guys that I think had a really, really good G League start to the year and have been playing. I know some people are going to be like, where's Markelle Fultz and all these other guys? Really, guys, it seems like a lot of NBA teams, unless you're Jay Crowder or like a Dennis Smith Jr., or again, a Markelle Fultz, and we know Markelle Fultz is coming back from an injury, or Marcus Morris, you're playing in the G. Landry Shamet, I know he got hurt and he rehabbed his way back, but he was in the G. Matt Ryan, you're seeing more and more guys. Jordan Goodwin. So let's get right into it. First team we're talking about is the Boston Celtics. Joe Mazzulla wants somebody who can help them play Joe Mazzulla ball. A lot of three-point shooting, and Joe Mazzulla is still a defensive-minded coach who likes that flexibility and perimeter coverage that a guy like Nassir Little, who is averaging like 17.7 rebounds and 1.2 blocks and 1.5 steals per game, basically, and shooting 46% from the field. I think getting a guy like that, the defensive versatility, would upgrade Boston's bench in terms of its perimeter interior coverage and helping them improve their defensive effective field goal percentage, which is a little bit low for their standards. And I really think in the rotational impact, he can slot in with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown in a forward heavy sets while preserving scoring and giving them more of a defensive presence. Or you could really look at it and just think, hey, how about we go Sam Hauser, Nassir Little, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Neemias Queta. There's also the second options of Jahlil Okafor shooting threes now and is actually a decent passer from the elbow and can execute dribble handoffs, 18.5 points, almost 9 rebounds. And there's also TJ Warren, who's cooking like nobody's business. Let's move over to the next team. And of course, we're going to put a little bit more pep in our step. The Cavaliers. And I know Nassir Little is the first guy I put up there. He would really help their defense. And if they were to move on from Isaiah Curl, which doesn't seem like they're going to do now, he would just give them more wing depth and just give them some, again, depth at a position that it seems like they always need some. And he can fit alongside Darius Garland and Evan Mitchell, or Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, adding hustle, length, and wing defense. I think if they wanted to bring in a guard, Kellyan Hayes can add some ball handling perimeter defense, and Kenny Atkinson could fix him. Maybe a Thon Maker if they wanted somebody else. But the Cavs really don't need anybody too crazy. Next up, the Detroit Pistons. Tolu Smith is currently on the Motor City Cruise, and he is a dog. I saw him at Portsmouth last year when I went, and JB Bickerstaff's been a guy who's always been good at player development. They're trying to, build a defensive identity. No offense to Jalen Duren, but he's still, basketball IQ wise and feel for the game, just seems a little bit lost. I think getting a guy like Tolu Smith would allow them to have a young guy who's an interior defender, more of an efficient scorer, could help stabilize the front court and allow, Kay Cunningham. I know Jaden Ivey's hurt, but when Jaden Ivey comes back. The other is either Jahlil Okafor, and also Smith's a really good rebounder, or a Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley, not much of a scorer, but a good rebounder and rim protector that a team like the Pistons would enjoy. And I think he would take the opportunity to be on a team like the Pistons to get another opportunity in the NBA. Kevin Knox is already on the Santa Cruz Warriors, and they want an NBA guy, someone that they don't need to develop. And Kevin Knox has always played well in the G League. He's averaging 18.7 rebounds, shooting like 46% from the field. And he gives them positional flexibility, can play both forward positions, as he could really be a backup for Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, and he fits well into the small ball lineups while preserving Steve Kerr's pace and space approach. Outside of that, if they wanted to go for more developmental picks, I think Jameer Young on the Grand Rapids Gold, 22 point per game scorer out of University of Maryland, and he's actually facilitating like 7 assists per game. He's just a microwave off the bench, and he could be someone that if they wanted to convert one of their two ways to a full roster spot, they give the next two way to Jameer Young. Same thing for this other guy, Jaylen Martin, who is a 3-and-D two-way, 7-foot wingspan, 6'5" guard, who's been with the Nets for the last few seasons and was recently cut. I just think those are the three guys that kind of fit their MO. Next up, Houston Rockets. I think we all know that getting an actual big man depth, especially with Jabari Smith now being hurt, Ime Udoka's defensive first mentality, especially with their emphasis on multi-positional versatility, just loving that positionless basketball. I think bringing Thonmaker in, who's already around the team on the the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. He's a guy right now averaging always 2 blocks a game, 35% from 3. If they want another big, again, earlier mentioned, Tony Bradley, who's averaging, almost 9 rebounds, 66% from the field. Tony Bradley's probably a little bit better. Maybe Thonmaker still has some untapped potential. Jaylen Martin's another guy that if they were interested in, that two-way wing who legitimately could fit into the starting lineup next to Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green and Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, or, off the bench with some of those guys, just in Fred VanVleet, just a really good wing and large combo guard that I think fits into the modern NBA style of play. But I think we all know that their biggest concern right now would more than likely be a big man. Moving over to the Heat, Tony Snell. I know that his numbers are skewed because he really only played in the G League showcase to show himself off, and then Nassir Little. They're both on the Sioux Falls, which is the G League team for the Heat. And the Heat love their outside shooting. They love their wings. They like their two-way discipline. It just seems getting a veteran sharpshooter who for his career has been a reliable floor spacer in Tony Snell, or a two-way guy who's still 26, 25 in Nassir Little. I just think having a guy who can provide some offense off the bench whenever Tyler Hero, or now that they're trading Jimmy Butler, but Duncan Robinson, whoever else gets off the floor, just especially with the Butler stuff, just having a guy who can play multiple positions, two-way, especially in a space-driven offense, can really help them. Outside of that, I think they like bringing their guards in from their G League team and the young guys. So Jaylen Nowell and Trey Burke could be guys, but I really think they'd rather bring in wings like a Tony Snell or a Nassir Little that could give them instant help. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves, I love Chris Finch. They don't have a backup point guard. Now with Rob Dillingham being hurt, this is a team that needs more cohesive rotation to balance offense. And I'm not saying McLaughlin was a great backup point guard, but he's better than what we have now. Jalen Crutcher is the best point guard, arguably, in the G League. He's averaging 7 assists a night, just under 20 points. He fills the playmaking void in a Minnesota bench unit that's been needing one. And he'll stabilize the offense as a table setter whenever Anthony Edwards sits and Mike Conley sits, and he'll help improve the offense points per possessions by distributing to Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Rudy Gobert. Now, outside of that, I think you could consider a defensive-minded guard like a Killian Hayes or Devontae Grant. I mean, Devontae's more of a 3-and-D, but a Jordan Goodwin, or even a Jameer Young, because he's on the Grand Rapids Golds, and President Tim Conley has ties to the Nuggets organization. Or if they want a veteran, I think a Trey Burke, who is averaging 20 points a game, could add shot creation off the bench for them. That's just my thoughts. I just think they really just need kind of someone to help them out there. Now, the Pelicans, I put 2 guards. We just talked about Jalen Crutcher. Jalen Crutcher would just continue to be another guard who will come in. It's a bad season. Willie Green just wants a guy who's going to give a high defensive effort, be able to facilitate and table set while being able to space the floor. And I think either a Killian Hayes or a Jalen Crutcher both add playmaking and a kind of a defensive focus for the team, and could be reclamation projects in a Killian Hayes, or Jalen Crutcher could be a diamond in the rough. While another guy outside of that, I think you could look at, as we talked about, Thonmaker. They need big man help, that also would allow them to space the floor, help stretch defenses and give them some length on both ends. Or same thing with Jaylen Martin, which would be same reasons I said for Thonmaker, but instead we would say that's going to be for the wing position instead. Now let's move on over to the New York Knicks, the Knickerbockers. TJ Warren's killing it right now for the Knicks, G League team, the Winchester Knicks. And he would just be a guy that he's a polished scorer. He was with the team during training camp. That just seems like it would be an aforementioned ready to go. But one would also argue behind Deuce McBride, there isn't really a true guard depth. And I think a guy like Jordan Goodwin fits that to a T, would really help them, would give them a guy off the bench that I think they would value, who can give them some defense, facilitate, can play both the 1 or 2, and just fits that defensive toughness and methodical offensive approach that the Knicks like under Tom Thibodeau. Now, if they want to score that addresses their need for reliable perimeter scoring and offense efficiency, Jaylen Noel, who would bolster their bench production and, allow for them to go defensive heavy and still have kind of a guy who can score for himself when their offensive heavy starters sit. Nassir Little, another guy we talked about already, that two-way ability would fit into Thibodeau's scheme, which I think would, obviously be something that they would enjoy. And of course, the Sixers. We don't know what's going on, but one of the best guys in the G right now, and Nick Nurse is a positionless coach who plays his best players for most of the game, but he likes guys who also give good effort, can pass, dribble, shoot, positionless defenders that can also be secondary playmakers. And Damian Baugh, or is it Bo? But Damian's a guy who's averaging, not only is he scoring a bunch in the G, but he's averaging almost 7 points a game. 7 assists a game, a steal a game, and 11 points a game. So 11 points, 7 assists, a steal a game, and kind of like reminds me of a Terrence Mann-esque. He adds a defensive-minded secondary playmaker off the bench that'll complement Tyrese Maxey and can play with Jared McCain when he comes back. And he fits the style of play, can have a pick-and-roll chemistry with Joel Embiid, and can play off of Paul George. Outside of that, I think getting a guy like a proven scorer and playmaker who will hustle on defense and give Nick Nurse some backcourt depth would be Devontae Graham. And if they want another forward to get behind Gershon Yabusele, would be a Ferran Hunt, who's a 38% three-point shooter right now, who can be a decent defensive defender. And finally, but not least, the Phoenix Suns. Frank Kaminsky was on their training camp team. He's currently on the Raptors 905. I know Ferran Hunt's the guys first. He's a utility wing who's averaging 9.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 38% from three right now in the G, and he can guard inside and out. He would bolster their defense. He can play both combo forward spots and boost both ends of the floor under Mike Budenholzer's structure scheme that is a balance of depth, floor spacing, and disciplined defense. I think having a familiar floor spacer that was with them in camp in Frank Kaminsky would be the most logical route, and they need some front court help. If not, a Jahlil Okafor would help them. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Like, comment, and subscribe.